We made this.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Or the podcast. Happy birthday to me.
What date's this going out on?
This is going out on the 8th or 9th of January.
So less than a week before my birthday. It's nowhere near your birthday.
Yeah, but it's not about you.
I'm here.
This is not about me. Yes, hi. If you don't know, if you're listening to this for the first time, strange episode to start on, but I am Matt Latham. I am the host of Pick a Disc, and this is a special bonus episode for the month of January 2024, because that's exactly what the year is right now. Definitely.
Yes, it's not December 2023. No.
And my guest, Colin-Jackson Brown, is definitely not sat opposite my Christmas tree.
This is correct.
Yes. But yes, it's a special episode that I wanted to do. One, because last week you had a kind of map pick that wasn't a map pick, technically, but which was like a nice deviation from styles. But I thought I wanted to do something special for the fifth episode for the 5th year of this podcast, and we'll get into a bit more about why that in a bit. But yeah, with me is the person going to be taking the reins and guiding. I'm going to say the only person I trust, but he's the only person nearest, and he has all the fancy equipment. It's Colin-Jackson Brown here again.
I live about 4 miles away, so
yes.
Yeah.
And you've got a better setup for recording locally than I have.
Hello. So, Matt, congratulations on sticking with it and getting to 5 years.
Oh.
Well done.
I know, yeah. I think I've only missed... I worked this out. I've only missed one fortnight, and that was due to being ill.
Yeah.
And I've only ever had one episode go out late.
That's
that
awesome.
was a day late.
Well done.
So, yeah, I did work it out. So I thought I'd missed a couple more, but no, I haven't.
And it's also this month the We Made This Network's 5th birthday as well. So Pick a Disc is one of the, I think we worked out earlier, one of only 3 podcasts that was there at the start of the network and is still going.
Yeah.
So there's the X-Cast and Cinemortuary as well.
Yeah, I mean, I did a bit of quick Googling, and I think Tony actually announced it around October, November of 2018, that he was going to do this, and I think it was going to bring the X-Cast to it.
Yeah.
And he probably denies now, but I'm pretty sure I remember him posting something on Facebook that Pick a Disc was the first non-his podcast that he'd put onto the network.
Nice.
So he sent me a message, because I was 2 episodes in at that point.
Yeah.
So it was the episode with Kurt and Kaylee before, and then the first one with the We Made This at the start is the one with Helena.
Yes.
So, but and before, and I did it. I was just giggling back, and I was just looking back, and I found this thing online from about January 2019. If you don't mind me giving you a bit of advice, then weekly is pretty ambitious. I've just cut it out. I just cut down our podcast from every 2 weeks to once a month, and just getting a bit too much work to get it all edited in time, particularly when you're having to arrange guests and herd them up to get the episodes recorded. Excellent if you can do it, but I think you might be making yourself a lot more work than necessary.
Oh, that was me.
Yes.
Yeah. I still stick by it. Don't do too much work.
Yeah, to be fair, what I've come to realise, and I've said this to, I've now passed sage advice when people start talking about episodes, trying to do weekly or fortnightly, is that I think that if I would have gone weekly, I wouldn't have lasted.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Loads of podcasts do that. They burn out really quickly.
Yeah, and I think, and I mean, you got 2 monthly podcasts, but then again, it ends up you kind of do a fortnightly schedule anyway, because
basically,
yeah. And I think there's enough time to get things working, and sometimes I've actually recorded about 2 or 3 in a week, and I've managed to kind of have a month off, and it's kind of worked that way.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And I mean, the network's had podcasts come and go over the years. We've made loads of new friends over it. It's really cool. Nice community to be part of.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, because I remember, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, I remember running remember running around one Christmas, running and listening to, I think, one of the early Weedig musics.
Yeah.
Yeah, like before I even knew you. To this day, it's kind of weird that no, Clatchy was a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just like this disembodied voice, like talking about Tamworth and insulting Oasis.
I mean, to the listeners, most of them, I might still be a disembodied voice.
Yes, true.
I might be a disembodied head. I might be like that thing out of Power Rangers that you know the name of that no one else can remember. That's the one. So yeah, pick a disc.
Yes.
That's this podcast.
Yes.
I mean, I've discovered new music that I wouldn't have necessarily heard before through here.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, both artists picked by Helen Deakin, Phoebe Bridgers and Caroline Polachek, are both big favourites of mine now. Both of them I initially heard after listening to the episodes that Helen had appeared on.
Yeah.
And went, that sounds good. I'm going to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, both of them utterly fantastic. So I need to check out the stuff that she's done on the other episodes, because she's done a few.
Yes, Sylvan Esso.
Sylvan Esso I like, but I haven't got that particular album.
And there's the Love playlist, and there was Slow Club.
Yeah.
So that's on that one. So,
which is Self-Esteem's old band, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did you decide to do for this episode then? For this self-indulgent...
Yes, the self-indulgent mess that it is. Well, to be fair, I mean, I get every 10 episodes self-indulgence anyway. But I've always attributed that to the map picks, which I mean, they're like the lowest downloads of all the episodes. So whether that's indictments on the host of this podcast, I'm not sure. But I've always said they are kind of markers or kind of like productivity rewards,
fence posts.
Yes,
for the podcast.
Yeah. I do. As I say, I think productivity rewards is probably the best bit. And,
star chart.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to do something. Originally, I wanted to do something insular and kind of like retrospective. But then this is episode 131. I'm like, I don't know if I can have the strength to go back and listen to 131 albums. And to be fair, there's been nothing that I've really disliked or.
Yeah, because you were initially talking about doing what you would have picked for each of the songs on the playlist, weren't you? Yeah, which would have taken ages. Yeah,
I do have a Matt version of that playlist actually.
Yeah. Are there any albums where you just didn't put anything on there, like Limp Bizkit or anything like that?
No. All of them have had stuff on that, and so there's not been any albums that I've like completely and utterly hated. There's probably some that I've probably not been as interested in to re-listen since. I'm not going to name any names to protect the guests.
War of the Worlds and White Zombie.
Yeah. But I think every album's had some like semblance of stuff. And as much as I constantly joke about the Limp Bizkit album, there are a couple of good songs on that. I still think "Take a Look Around" is still it's still a great song. It's the best one on the album.
I was well into nu metal. You're not going to get any argument from me.
Yeah.
What have you decided to do then?
So what I have decided to do is basically I refer to it as the map playlist.
Right.
Now, which was basically me picking 10 random songs.
Right.
But, and I thought, let's do that. But then I thought, you know what? I was coming to this and I was like, I'll put down 10 songs. I'm like, I've talked about some of these on either this podcast already because they've been on albums before, or there've been songs that I've managed to talk about on other podcasts about.
Yes.
So I've picked 10 songs and I'll get to them we'll get to them in a sec, but there are some songs that I probably would have definitely picked.
So honourable mentions.
Honourable mentions. Well, these are ones that probably would have like probably taken the place of all 10 of these.
Yeah.
So stuff like Biology by Girls Aloud, Keep On Moving by Five, I Wish Skilo, Independent Love Song by Scarlet, This River Is Wild by The Killers, I Am I Feel by Shazatic, Friday I'm in Love by The Cure, Mr. Brightside by The Killers, Lisbon by Wolf Alice, Lost Youth by We Are Performance, Still My Sunshine by The Cause, no, Still My Sunshine by Len. Yeah, Summer Sunshine's the one by The Cause.
Yeah.
Teenage FBI by Go by Voices, Murder on the Dance Floor, so Felix Baxter, Pure Shores, Paul Saints, and a very crap pop song that got to number 60 called 3IL by a band called So Unique, which I talked about on Cerebral Jukebox. But those songs that I've spoken about on other podcasts, and they are some of my favourite songs of all time. But then I thought, I don't want to repeat myself. So what I thought I'd do, you know what, I'll do songs I'm not talked about. But then I
Yeah.
think, well then, there are like some songs that I've not had a chance to talk about yet. They're on albums I really like that potentially could be new map picks and stuff. So, and a couple of them were probably on that list I just said. So I thought, you know what, if I go for either songs that perhaps weren't on albums or singles, or perhaps are on albums that I love, but I don't think I could talk for a whole episode on.
Yeah.
I'll do that. And I think what that's done is it's been a nice challenge. Well, I say it's a nice challenge. It's the playlist was very quick, and and I had to replace a few because I gave you one, and I had to take 3 songs out because I talked about them on the podcast. I think originally Skilo was on that list, but I talked about it before.
See, that means Skilo has been missed out twice this month on the We Made This Network.
Oh,
because the We Dig Music 1995 episode, it's one that was just missed on my 10.
Well, I thought, you know what, I'm going to be strict, and I'm going to do that. And to be fair, I jotted down. I did jot down about another about like 16, 20 songs that could easily make this list.
Yeah.
So there could easily be a sequel in like, I don't know, if I get to 10
the
years,
10 years,
10 years stuff. But yeah, there is so much stuff that on here, like songs that I would have classed in my top 5 of all time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't put on this list. Like, for example, like Crossroads by Van and Harmony. You Bring Me Down, Blood Red Shoes. Lazy Eye Service on Pickups, Go Teams, Milk Crisis. Girl Power by Shampoo. even All Star by Smash Mouth. I talked about that. Or Kung Fu Fighting, but the bus stop version. I love that version. I love the version of that
You
song.
are the only person in the world that would ever say that Kung Fu Fighting, the cover by Bus Stop, is one of their favourite songs.
Carl Douglas is involved. Well, here it is. Want to Make You Move. Something with the funky kung fu groove. Something that'll make you turn around, make the honeys want to turn around. So everybody gather around. I'll pick you up, take you down for pound. Because I'm the only man who please you. I've got to do something that'll tick you out. I'm not going to.
I suspect that this will not be the only time that Matt raps in this episode.
But yeah, so the 10 that I've picked, I thought, you know what? I'm pretty sure there's only one instance where, there's definitely one band that I've spoken about on the podcast, but it's not the song.
Right, I know which one that is then.
You'll know which one that is.
Yeah.
And so I double checked. I'm like, oh no, it's not that one. I think I made reference to the song on that, but I've not spoken about it. And I've just realised that. But I'm pretty sure I didn't speak about that song. But yeah, so these are the 10 that I've done, for a myriad of different reasons that we'll go through, because we're going to go through one by one. The question I've got actually, that's not a question. I kind of had a guess at how many of these that you might have been aware of.
Okay.
Now, I've counted 7, potentially 8 that you were aware of beforehand.
I think it's less than that I actually knew well.
Or at least that you've heard of.
Hold on, let me just do some counting again.
Yeah.
Yep, no, it's less than that.
Oh, okay.
But we'll get to that as we go through.
Okay.
So,
I think you probably know more of the acts.
Yes. Oh, God, there's 8. Artists that I know in there that...
That's the 8. I think definitely 8 that you know of. There's 2 that I think you might not be aware of.
Okay.
Possibly 9, actually, but yeah, so I'm going to let you take the reins because we're going to go through them one by one. Okay.
So the only other thing I wanted to ask before we start, is there any particular reason for the order that they're on the playlist, or is it just in at random, or how it flowed nicely? Or
I think it kind of flowed. I think I did kind of mix them up. The last one, I think the last one I chose deliberately because I think it's a good one to end on.
Good closer.
It's a good closer for what the song's about.
Okay.
And not the superficial one that I think you're going to come back with.
Well, we'll get back to that in a bit.
Yeah.
So the first one then, what's the first song on your playlist, Matt?
It is Do You Really Like It by DJ Pied Piper and the Master of Ceremonies.
You ridiculous bastard.
Yeah.
Do you really like it, Matt? Is it wicked?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Loving it like this.
Yes. Cue the gong.
So, yeah, this is one of only 65 actual true one-hit wonders in the UK charts of all time. And I was looking at the list, and it's near enough in the middle in
Okay.
chronologically. So since the charts began, this is the 34th. Flat Beat by Mr. Wazzo is the current halfway point
Okay.
from when the charts began. This is a song that was big when I was working in a record shop. So it was the UK garage scene was sort of the big thing around that time, which I was not the target audience for in any way at the time.
Neither was I, but I really liked it, and I think there's a weird nostalgic kind of specific time period covered. So it's not just like, it's very similar to Britpop, although I think even Britpop managed to have like a bit longer than before.
Okay, yeah.
Britpop managed a few years before its premature death, before the Spice Girls killed it. But I think and UK garage kind of just managed to get.
In the mainstream, UK garage was probably mid 99 it started, but mainly 2000 to 2001. There's a chapter in Reach for the Stars, which is, I've completely blanked on who it's by because it's gone.
Michael Craig.
That's him.
Yeah.
Which is an absolutely amazing book that I'm reading at the moment. There's a chapter on UK garage in that, which is a really short chapter. It's only about 5 minutes to read on the Kindle, whereas the rest are all like an hour long. Where basically the people within the scene saw garage as dead long before this track was released.
Mm-hmm.
It was around about the sort of time of Craig David going mainstream, basically. So it was 2000 rather, and this was 2001.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of the last kind of high points for UK garage. And to be fair, I mean, I've always liked this. It's a song that will get me on a dance floor at a party, including work dues. And every time, it's always appeared in every year. Every time there is someone who is constantly surprised that I know the words to this.
Have they not met you before? This is exactly the kind of song that you would know every single word to.
Yeah, exactly. But that's again that side of me doesn't really show. In my my place of work. So
you're not as gangster.
No. But I mean, I think it's a pop garage hit. But I don't know. There's just something about it that I've always quite liked. It's always just been something that's.
When you're dancing to it at a work party or something,
yeah.
Do you put a camera right down on the floor and dance towards the camera, like looking down at it, like the dudes in the video do?
No, but I really wish I'd. But next year,
next time you will. Yeah,
next year. But no, a couple of people going like, "Hey, this is the our youth, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
But but I mean, like, so it got to number one, and apparently it sold 600,000 copies.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous if you compare it to modern day.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's still quite low compared to the 90s hits.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously it was pre-downloads, so it was before the major decline of single sale.
I mean, it's around about 3 or 4 years before iTunes, because that was 2004, I think.
But before iTunes, there was people were downloading off Napster and LimeWire before that, anyway. But that was about 2003-ish, I think. I'm
pretty sure the MP3 that I obtained of this actually had a garage radio, like an underground radio sting at the start of it.
Right.
Like, so it was like Enter the Dragon, and it was something like sub blah 9260. You're listening to blah blah London or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the top of my head, but
I used to love when I was driving in Birmingham. Finding the pirate radio stations that you could only find for a little bit while you were driving.
Mm-hmm.
There was some great stuff.
but yeah, I mean, what's your opinion on the song?
Not great, to be honest.
Okay.
There were garage songs that I liked a lot more. I've always found the sample really. I mean, it's from a demo disc for a sequencer, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Which was have you got it written down? It was an Akai, I think, wasn't it?
I haven't got it written down, but it was it's basically like just like a sample beat that you got from Yeah, like a
It was
synthesizer.
it was the demo disc for this this sample module, not sample module, MIDI module,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that's quite interesting. That's how the keyboard sound at the start of "Beat It" by Michael Jackson. That was similar. That was from a demo disc for a synth at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just like, right, we're sampling that and using it, and then they used it in one of the biggest songs of all time. I was surprised there weren't more samples in it actually. When I had a look on who sampled, but
There's a lot more from this than actually
yes,
on it.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's testament to kind of how much this is kind of constantly referred to. So like the "Do you really like?" Is it wicked? Is like a recurring kind of.
Well, they get no credit for it, but I'm absolutely sure that the "I'm loving it, loving it, loving it" influenced the McDonald's "I'm loving it" slogan, which came out a couple of years later.
Yeah,
I think this is where that came into, common usage.
wasn't that like Justin Timberlake?
Justin Timberlake did the single for it, yeah, but it was some guys in an advertising agency in Germany who basically went from McDonald's having little localized campaigns all over the world to going, right, we have a global slogan that must be used everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm sure it was from this originally.
Yeah. I've always quite liked. It's like there's like an actual kind of like like a fake drum beat that goes. It's like the common thing through it, but then but the verses all kind of have different elements in. So every time there's a verse and a chorus, it sounds quite different. But there's that common drum beat and stuff in that. And I've always quite liked how like it kind of adds character to the different like MCs and singers that are involved.
Yeah.
And to the credit, because they're all very distinctly. They're all got very distinct vocals and voices.
Although one of them, the rest of the band don't know who he is. He's just called the unknown or something.
Yeah. To be fair, and he's the person who sings the first verse, and that's the best bit of the song, if I'm honest. The first verse is the best bit, and it's very front loaded because a lot of the kind of interesting wordplay or the cool lyric bits are all in that first verse. So it's the like, what's it take to be a garage MC? Personality, originality on the microphone. You got to be. Whereas then some of the other stuff turned into a lot more of the dancey side of garage.
Yeah.
Repeat. So and it starts getting a bit repetitive, which I don't mind. It's just like
the Iron Apple bit always used to bug the shit out of me.
Iron Apple, Schnell.
Oh, is it Schnell?
I've always thought
I never knew
Schnell.
what he said there.
I always thought it was. It's probably not.
Let's go there really fast in German. Yeah,
I thought it was just like them shouting, "Let's go" in German.
Yeah. Okay, I can dig that.
But what I found quite interesting, and I actually think there's like the garage sound, like when they say that things seem to appear in like nostalgia cycles of the 20s.
Yeah.
I think there's like some kind of like modern pop music that's starting to incorporate a lot more. Like, and I'm not talking about kind of modern garage, which feels a lot more like trap or dubstep, because I'm really not a fan of dubstep in general. But you've got more of a like, it feels like you've picked up. That's what I call garage from 2000 being played through.
There's influences all over modern pop music. The Caroline Polachek album from this year, there's loads of garage beats on there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a track called "Fly to You," which is basically a garage track, and has got Dido on guest vocals as well. It's like, where have they dug her up from?
I think I've been getting to Katie Bass's music. She's got a track from on her EP she released earlier this year. She's got a song called 2020s.
Right.
That sounds so much like it's from the 2000s. I think I went at Dot to Dot, not this year, the year before. I saw, I think, Piri and Tommy. And I felt like I was the oldest person in there at the time. But when they start, I not really listened to them before, but then they started playing. And again, it just sounds so much. It sounds like Sweet Female Attitude.
I felt like that when I went to Dot Festival 18 years ago. And I'm only like 3 years older than you.
Yeah, I just think this is great. This is like something that would encourage me to go on, like, just go onto the dance floor, like, get me dancing for a bit,
Fair.
and I just felt it was like a nice introduction, and people who know me would immediately think, yeah, I can see exactly why Matt would pick
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
People who perhaps don't know me will go, why would Matt pick this?
Yeah.
Hang on. And then if like, will then realise that if they've listened to the podcast, go, no, hang on, I can understand why.
Yeah. Right, what have you got next on the playlist?
So, what I've got next is actually my favourite song from the whole of last decade.
Okay.
So it's Happy Accidents Leaving Parties Early.
Yes.
From You Might Be Right from 2016.
Yes. This is a band that I did not know at all. I don't think I'd heard this at all before. It reminds it's a nice sort of little punky indie pop single, and I can definitely see that you would like it because the main band it really reminded me of is the Wombats. But I liked it more than the Wombats because I'm not massively keen on them. I thought this was really good.
Yeah, it's basically one of the things that I'm surprised that I'm sure that you picked up on was a lot of my kind of music taste is very female vocalist or non-male vocalist led and stuff, and a lot of this is actually quite male vocalist, which probably says that I've used all my female pop guilty pleasures into the podcast, but and it's quite rare that male vocalists break through. I think
I would say there's 23% of this playlist is female vocals.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to defend myself in saying that a lot of the time that percentage is a lot higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so this
is the 5th year of the podcast. You've done quite a lot of Matt picks previously. People have heard you talking about your music taste. You haven't got to defend yourself on that, mate.
Fair enough. Right. Okay. Let's talk about the male gen. Let's talk about the males. Anyway, yeah. So, but when they've got
a girl on drums.
Yeah. So basically, I think there's like a level of self-deprecation, like a self-deprecating lead vocalist immediately breaks through. I say my favorite band of all time, Los Campesinos. It's very kind of nihilistic, very self-deprecating, very self-defeatist. The Wombats, I'm a massive fan of the Wombats, and find it quite funny to bring them up because they are very much self-deprecation.
Yeah,
kind of like, oh, I'm a bit shit. Or basically highlighting the kind of flaws and stuff, and it's kind of against the kind of alpha male kind of like pruning prick stuff that I sometimes get from a lot of kind of like all male bands and stuff that I'm kind of not a fan of.
I mean, from the Britpop scene in particular, sort of. So what was it? This was 2016. So if it was 20 years earlier, oh my God, I've just had an existential crisis that it was 20 years after. But yeah, 20 years earlier, when you got all the Oasis and menswear and people like that, yes, it was very egotistical. I think because they were all on cocaine.
Allegedly.
You don't have to allege that it's well fucking documented that they were off their faces on cocaine.
But but I think with this song, I remember listening to it, and this song kind of soundtracked all of my 20s. This was the retrospective soundtrack of my 20s. This is basically about me in my 20s, possibly my 30s, and quite possibly my teens as well.
But when you get there, your 40s.
Yes, but no, it's so for people. If you listen to this and you've not listened to the playlist yet, this is basically an ode to social awkwardness. But it's a very explicit kind of well written storytelling.
Lyrics are great.
Yeah, basically of just like basically being like creative situations or parties and stuff, and just feeling very awkward, but then kind of wanting to leaving, but then feeling really bad that you feel like you should have like stuck around and stuff. And it's just done in such a very well done way, with such a very like catchy chorus, which is the term I always use is kind of verbose, where there's a lot of like rambling lyrics or very lyrically dense stuff, and the chorus feels like it fits a lot into it, but still feeling quite catchy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, he calls himself a twat, which is always amusing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I can fuck this up if I didn't relax. But in trying to relax, I come off a twat. But despite knowing that, I still try to relax.
Yes, which is a great lyric.
Yeah. But I think, but it kind of ends like, I feel like there's something wrong with me, which is the bit that ends on the stuff. And the amount of times I've related to that, it's kind of ridiculous in terms of like feeling like kind of like socially awkward and like just hating yourself afterwards. But I think as I've gotten older, I think there's a bit more self. I think as you grow older, you kind of like, you know what, I quite like just sticking around, watching TV, staying at home, and kind of reflecting and growing from that.
And that's why we're podcasters.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think but this was my favorite kind of song from that decade, and I remember with the exact same energy that this song is mustering, trying to explain that to the singer Rich Mandel when Happy Accidents played Birmingham. I tried to explain that to him, and I think I might have fucked it up because I was trying to relax. So he just stood there going, "Oh, okay, that's nice." Right, I'm thinking, who's this twat?
Do you remember how you got into this song, where you first heard it, or anything like that?
Yeah. So I think I think a couple of friends of mine or people that I know, there's a through my mate Addis, who's been on this podcast before. He one of the first people he ever put on when he was putting gigs on was a guy called Adam Boucher, and Adam Boucher had like a side project a couple of years ago called The Restless Coast, and but a lot of his kind of music taste, he's got a very kind of strong kind of indie pop taste.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff that he's quite like. So if everything comes up like on Bandcamp saying, "Oh, Adam Boucher's bought something," I'm like, "Oh, what's he? Whatever."
I trust his taste. I'll go and check it out. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that he probably tweeted about Happy Accidents. I'm 95% sure it was Adam Boucher that did that. Tweeted about this, and it was from an EP they did called Autopilot. And I listened to that and I'm like, oh, that's really, really good stuff. And they then got signed by Alcopop Records.
I was going to say they're on Alcopop Records. So.
And pretty much anything on Alcopop immediately means that I'm going to pay a lot more attention to.
I've only got one record on Alcopop, I think. That's Katie Malco album. And I saw her supporting Jenny Lewis and bought her album at the merch desk.
Oh, yeah, I've got loads of stuff from her.
Yeah.
I think Johnny Foreigner, one of my favourite, one of my top 3 bands of all time, who I'm going to be seeing tomorrow, actually, on the day recording, signed to Alcopop. Yeah, but so just absolutely loved it. And I think as well, the kind of like, there's a growing kind of family of bands that spiraled from this. So it used to be, I think it was Rich Mandel, whose brother, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. He was the bassist, but he left just before the 3rd album. Drummer Phoebe Cross, and I think Rich and Phoebe are now married.
Okay.
Yeah. Phoebe.
Yes, because isn't the band now just the 2 of them as a duo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Second album was like kind of like Phoebe had a lot more vocal stuff. So just like it was a lot more kind of tag team vocals.
Yeah.
Is definitely one of the boxes that get me interested in. Sprawling, the 3rd album, was a lot more kind of slow, introspective stuff, but I think it was recorded during lockdown at the time. So it's a lot more like the slower albums and stuff. But so Rich and Phoebe are now members of the Me Rex, which is Miles McCabe's.
Right.
Miles McCabe used to be a member of Fresh. I think he just recently broke away. I think just to focus on Me Rex, I think a lot more.
Yeah. I've definitely heard of Me Rex.
Yeah, Me Rex is really good. They're not the latest album, the album that came out a couple of years ago, which is basically 52 tracks that are meant to be played on shuffle.
Okay.
Yeah, so the tracks are between about 8 to about 32 seconds long, and you can just, if you just put it on shuffle, it's meant to be listened to and randomly.
I've got a Robin Ince comedy stand-up DVD that's meant to be played on shuffle.
Oh, okay.
Which is quite cool.
Okay. Yeah. And then again, Catherine, who's the lead singer from Fresh, is part of a band called Tube Leaders that Phoebe is also the drummer for as well.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of stuff, a lot of crossover and kind of like an indie pop kind of like family part of stuff on that. But,
nice.
So this is probably the song that probably would have had the most chance of staying on this list if I didn't have the Don't Talk About, if I didn't have the block other songs that I've already talked about.
Yeah.
This is the song that probably would have lasted. So,
sure.
Yeah. I mean, not only was it the song of the year, it's my favourite song of the 10s. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the third song then?
Third one. So probably not going to be speaking about this that much because I don't have that much in terms of notes and stuff. But this is "Hidden by Those Dancing Days."
Right. The only song on the list where it's a band who I own the album by and have seen live.
I've never seen these live, and I'm really gutted that I didn't.
They were great. I saw them at Latitude Festival in 2008. So it was the year after the album came out.
Just before I started going to gigs.
Right. Okay. So they were playing the second stage, but I think they had massively underestimated how big the stage actually was. Because what they had done to try and get a sort of, I think, Flaming Lips sort of atmosphere is they'd bought from the supermarket one of those bags of balls for a kid's ball pit. But they'd bought just one of those to then throw out to the crowd, which was completely swallowed by the photographer pit, and it was basically like a drop in the ocean compared to the stage sort of size. So yeah, it didn't have the impact that they were hoping for, I don't think. But the set was great. They were really, really good.
Yeah, I think Those 90 Days are one of those bands that I'm really gutted that I'll probably never get to see live. I think one of the reasons I think I got this was that this was 2008. This was around the time of the musical renaissance, as I like to call it.
Right.
Which is the MySpace era, just basically pre-Los Camasinos.
Right, yeah.
So post that, when I just started looking at the Unside Acts bit of MySpace, because I was just really getting into discovering that you could find music on the internet rather than just that. And I was starting to really enjoy that. And this was like a nice transition period because I think at the time, particularly just before, around 2005 to 2007, I was really kind of into. It was my Scandinavian digital punk phase, which I've not really spoke about on this podcast, and this doesn't technically, and I'm not. It's not actually. There's not that any kind of representation on that and this either. So that's still a good facet of my.
Save that for the 10th.
Yeah, I mean, I know you just quickly glanced at my canvas of albums, and it's stuff like Briskeby, which is Briskeby. Yeah. There's the Sounds, Sahara Hot Nights, that kind of era stuff.
Yes, yeah.
But this was like a kind of more of a transition. So they were I think they got picked up by the algorithm, the MySpace algorithm at that point, saying Swedish bands or Swedish or Norwegian or Finnish bands that Matt's into. So that got that bit, but it was a lot more of an indie pop bit, which was slowly morphing towards. So
their title track is my favourite one. Those Dancing Days by Those Dancing Days. Yeah, from the EP, Those Dancing Days.
Yeah, I really quite like. Is it Fuck Arias from the second album?
Yeah,
which I really quite like. It's slightly more energetic. That's the whole album's slightly more. Well,
I mean, on their title track, the drums are insane. She's a really good drummer.
Yeah, there's but yeah, this I think it was like a transitional period, I think, and so kind of like a stepping stone, or kind of like moving to a different kind of era of music and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just something about this song that I just quite liked. I think it was the first song of theirs that I heard.
Yeah.
I think on YouTube.
And if I remember correctly, this was their sort of big one. This was the one that Enemy were going on about a fair bit.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing.
Yeah, I really quite like the second verse as well. There's the do you really think I give a damn?
Yes,
I love that bit. It's one of my favorite verses in any song. So
cool.
But, yeah, that's all I really got to say about that one.
Fair enough. Let's go for the next song then.
Yeah. So this is My Culture by One Giant Leap, featuring Maxi Jazz, and I will warn you now, I never expected to have as many Take That alumni in this list than I expected. But yeah, Robin Williams is in this.
I was really surprised when there were 3 Gary Barlow tracks on it.
I know, yeah.
And who knew that Howard Donald had even recorded anything?
I know. Hey, never forget.
Yeah. Did you notice that this is just credited to Robbie Williams and Maxi Jazz on Spotify?
Yeah.
It doesn't mention One Giant Leap, who are the actual artists.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I had no idea who One Giant Leap were until about a week ago when I started doing
Right.
research for this, and it makes sense of why Maxi Jazz is involved because it's it's like a former member of Faithless who
Faithless, yeah.
broke off to form One Giant Leap. I don't know really anything about them post beyond that, apart from this was like, I don't think you can call it a one-hit wonder. It was just something that was played a lot on music channels.
It was a hit. I think they weren't on the one-hit wonders list, so they definitely at least had one other top 30 hit. But there aren't any others that I can remember. This is another one that came out when I worked in the record shop, so I can remember the album.
I'm going to guess that you probably like this a lot more. You probably enjoy this a lot more than
I expected to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Maxi Jazz is always great.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
think it's nearly a year ago. I think
round about that. Yeah. But yeah, this is it's a great track, and obviously I'd heard it quite a lot at the time, and hadn't realised until listening to it recently that it's all built around a Pink Floyd sample. It's the slide guitar from Breathe off Dark Side of the Moon. I think it's replayed rather than an actual sample.
But yeah, I mean, this always stuck with me. It's not. It's more. I wouldn't say it's garage. It's not. It's like
it's not at all.
It's like a dance.
Yeah,
like a cool acid housey. No. Trip hop. I don't know.
I would say it's sort of dance pop.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, really. It's yeah. There's a little bit of trip hop element in there. I mean, the main song that it reminds me of, although it was obviously not influenced by it because it only came out a couple of years ago, Wherever You Go by the Avalanches, featuring Nene Cherry, Jamie XX, and about 3 other people. But I think a lot of that is because of the sort of ambient bit at the start with the very philosophical guy with the New Zealand accent talking at the start.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I really quite like the storytelling aspect of this, what the song's about. Talking about, I think Maxi Jazz's verses are about kind of embracing kind of culture and trying to keep that going, that kind of culture going, and and working out the some like, well, the spoken intro, I'm the sum total of my ancestors, and I carry their DNA, and they go into other lines of people, but they meet other lines of people, and it's an interesting concept to. And the music and the scape gives it like an epic kind of traversal feel, like a cross generational kind of soundscape.
What's that Straits lyric?
Every single one of your ancestors survived.
Yeah.
Successfully brought down to you.
Every single person on your mum and dad's side successfully passed on to you.
Yeah.
Life. That I love that lyric, and it's the same kind of sort of philosophy that it's going with.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've not really talked about Robbie Williams yet.
No. Bob from Stoke.
I mean, I don't remember him. I don't. Then again, I don't know much about his personal life, but I don't remember him having that much of a public kind of disagreement with his dad. I don't know how much of that is real or not. I can't remember.
I don't know. The one thing I know about his dad is his dad used to live down the road from my uncle, and he used to see him in the pub all the time. But that was at the height of Take That's fame. And I think he was quite, oh, that's my son, that is, kind of, showing that he was quite proud. But obviously, when he was younger, he, if these lyrics are to be believed, he didn't really believe in Robbie Williams doing well. And yeah. I mean, my sister was a massive Take That fan in the 90s. For me, they were the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of so. I never appreciate. I think as I've gotten older, I kind of appreciate there's a kind of artistry to Gary Barlow's lyrics.
There's some. I mean, Back for Good is an absolutely fantastic pop song.
Yeah,
but he needs to pay some fucking taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, but yeah, I think there's and I've met home. Robbie Williams is a very divisive figure.
I've always quite liked him. I've always found him quite likeable.
Yeah,
he's an absolute bellend, but he's a likeable bellend.
Yeah, and He's I think there are more songs of his that I'm surprised that I quite like. I think his Escapology era songs, where like Come Undone, that album is when he's a lot personal.
The track that he did with Neil Tennant and Neil Hannon was really good, but I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember that. I think I'm still very much on the singles rather than the album.
That was a single. Yeah, I don't know album tracks.
I did have the first two, Life Through a Lens and Millennium. I did have them.
Yeah.
There's a great song called Jesus in a Camper Van that I really quite like.
I've got a vague recollection of hearing that from my sister playing it.
To the point where Jesus in a can of spam, but no, So I was fully. Part of me was half expecting you to just call him to like absolutely hate him, but
no, don't hate him. As far as I'm aware, he pays tax, so he's not the most hated member of Take That.
Yeah, but talking about members of Take That, so we move on to the next.
No Regrets. That's the song with
oh yes,
Neil Tennant and Neil Hannon on it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to another member of Take That. Yeah.
So this is 4 Minute Warning by Mark Owen.
Yes, who was my sister's favourite member of Take That. She had lots of Mark Owen posters because he's the cute one.
So this was from 2003. This is Mark Owen is the closest you've got to the indie member of Take That, and I did try and listen to the album stuff, and it is surprisingly not Britpop because it was 2003, but
it's definitely Britpop influence though.
It fits in with a lot of that kind of guitar band era, so like Franz Ferdinand stuff that was coming around in 2003.
It's not got the funk side
Yeah.
that Franz Ferdinand have got. But it's definitely indie influenced pop rock.
Yeah. But ever since I heard this song has never left me. I don't know what it is. It's just something about it that there's nothing special about it musically. I think it's just the way the song's structured. The fact that a member of Take That is singing about nuclear destruction. Which, for listeners, basically it's a song called 4 Minute Warning, and it's basically about what would happen if the radio said you got 4 minutes before we die.
Yeah. Which I had a song about that exact same thing in my band at school from before that, so I reckon you ripped me off. We had a song called Aftermath.
Yes, but did you kind of time it so
no,
when the choruses hit, you were actually
that's clever. Yes,
the radio
it counts down.
The radio edit there's a couple of instances of instrumentals like at the very start, and there's a extended instrumental bridge. The radio version cut that, so it's down to about 3 minutes 20 seconds. But the full like 4 minute.
They should have changed the title for the radio version then.
Yeah,
3 minute 20-second warning.
Yeah,
not quite as catchy.
But it works though. I mean the chorus is like 4 minutes left to go or 3 minutes left and 30 seconds left. It works really quite well, and the verses have got some quite. I did have a look to see who wrote it.
It was Elliot co-written with Elliot Kennedy.
So it was just the two of them as well. So
yeah, Elliot Kennedy's written "Say You'll Be There" for the Spice Girls, "When You're Gone" by Bryan Adams and Mel C, "Bring It All Back" by S Club 7, "When the Lights Go Out" by 5, and "Everything Changes" by Take That.
Yeah, I think, which is a Robbie-led song, and it's not that's another decent one I quite like.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, the one that there's a couple that I also wrote down, but you also had "Everything Changes" by Take That, "Say You Be There" by Spice Girls, and "Bring It All Back" was also on my list. But the ones that jumped out for me was "Day and Night" by Billie Piper,
right,
from the second album. "Testify" by Amy Stutt, which
is that on the album that you did an episode on?
Yeah, that would have been a Matt pick, but then Chris picked it, and it's one of my top tier albums.
That's the album where there's a picture in the inner sleeve of her looking like the grumpiest teenager in the world.
Yeah,
that we always used to find absolutely hilarious in the record shop.
Yeah, and finally a song that I think perhaps could have possibly ended up on this playlist actually,
right?
Which is "Last One Standing" by Girl Thing, which is one of my biggest guilty pleasures ever.
I don't know that song, but in the Reach for the Stars book that I'm probably going to mention that quite a lot because I started reading it 5 days ago and I'm now more than halfway through because it's amazing.
I've owned it for 2 months and I need to keep...
Get on it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Girl Thing, if I remember correctly, they are the band that they were trying to make the next Spice Girls and spent absolutely millions on, only for them to basically completely flop, including they launched their first single by closing the entire area by the Eiffel Tower and having them performing on the Eiffel Tower with Union Jacks all over it and stuff like that. It's like, it's France.
I did not know that.
You're not in Blackpool.
What I do know though is that they were supposed to be. There's a version that was recorded of Pure and Simple.
Yes,
which was given to Hearsay.
Yeah,
and that would be very interesting to see. There's an alternate timeline if Girl Thing ended up doing Pure and Simple, because I think that would have changed stuff. I think.
Oh yeah, we'd be living in a utopia by now if that had happened. There wouldn't be all of the austerity. It would be an absolute butterfly effect.
We probably wouldn't have got Girls Aloud though.
Oh fuck it! Now let's keep it like that.
But no, yeah, this song, I think it's a very surprising song. I mean, you'd heard this before then?
I think I had, but it's not the only Marco in solo song that I particularly remember is Clementine. Yeah, and this was 6 years later, 7 years later.
And what did you think of it overall? Was it?
I liked it. It's a good track, really well produced. I like the subject matter. Quite interested in nuclear annihilation. I'd like to think that it's this is the first song on a concept album, and then the rest of the album goes really fucking dark, and it's like the audio version of Threads.
Yeah,
but I mean, it probably isn't.
This was something that will probably crop up again later on in this playlist, but in a lot bigger way than what I think I'm about to say here. But it's a very deceptive, upbeat song.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weirdly upbeat, even being about kind of like a quite pessimistic thing.
It's the crowded house trick.
Yes.
Really uplifting sounding song, and then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh.
Yes, exactly. But so we're halfway through.
We are. So, the only other thing I didn't mention on that is I noticed the other day while listening to this that it'd been really bugging me what the vocal melody in the chorus was. And it is very, very similar to In Every Dream Home a Heartache by Roxy Music off their second album, which is a song it's a really disturbing love song to an inflatable doll, which has the amazing lyric, I blew up your body, but you blew my mind. So, yeah. Next one, then.
Okay, so this is Oh No by Mos Def and Pharoah Monch featuring Nate Dogg.
Indeed.
Or Lyricist Lounge 2 featuring Mos Def, Pharoah Monch and Nate Dogg.
Yeah, so Lyricist Lounge 2 it's a compilation album, isn't it?
I think so. I've never actually listened to it.
Right, okay.
This is the only song I know from that.
It's got I had a quick look at the track listing. There's a little live bit from Notorious B.I.G. is the first track.
Okay.
And this is the second track. But yeah, this isn't one I knew at the time at all.
Oh, okay.
It was a top 30 hit, but it was lower. It was about 25 it got to.
Well, because this was when I was like watching all kind of like the music channels.
Yeah.
On like Sky. This was on all the time.
Right. I didn't have any of the music channels. I didn't have Sky or cable or anything like that.
Okay.
So I used to watch them occasionally around at mates' houses, but it was all Kerrang or MTV2 or Scuzz. So we wouldn't have necessarily heard this.
Right. So this being teenage me, I was a lot more into the rap side of stuff.
Yeah.
But
Gangster Matt.
Yeah. The reason I picked this is that I think this has got some of my favourite rap verses of all time on this. And
there's the Pharoah Monch verse towards the end is absolutely fantastic. I really like that.
Yeah, I think for years I'd say that was my favourite rap verse of all time. Just the way that it's like very complicated technical rhymes. And, just I could spend hours just watching like there's a niche genre of videos where they'll put rap verses with the lyrics on, but they'll color code the syllable sounds, and there is now thousands of them. Like, I mean, you get to like Andre 3000 Aquemini, right, and it's basically the same color, like swing the wing, can't stand, blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the Dragons lines. Then so yeah, so you just have like the one color and stuff, and you'll get somewhere every syllable is a certain color. Wide Awake by Eminem. That second verse. Is it Wide Awake? Stay Wide Awake from Relapse. That second verse.
Is that the ridiculously fast?
No, that's Rap God.
Oh right, yeah.
That's Rap God. This is the one where he's pretty much he's portraying a character about to murder and rape someone. But the
That's
lines,
not like Eminem.
I know exactly. But the line, the way the line's structured is that you watch the lines and it's pretty much about 14 lines of like 6 different colours in the exact same meter.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. It's like it's ridiculous. But
so it's all internal rhymes and stuff like that. Yeah.
And something similar. It's not as kind of like rigid and like mind blowing as that. But the Baron Munch one, it's like a masterclass in how to kind of keep a flow and how to introduce rhymes by suddenly like ending the one line with a certain sound, starting the next one with that sound, but then starting filling in subtly an internal rhyme, and then having that rhyme suddenly divulge and then suddenly outtake.
Yeah, so it's really technically brilliant rapping on it. It didn't. The track itself doesn't grab me that much, to be honest. The instrumentation on it seems a little bit too much like, because it's all the sort of Japanese kind of instrumentation. It kind of made me think they were going for a Wu-Tang kind of, Enter the 36 Chambers, sort of, pastiche almost, but like, 7 years too late.
But I think as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate Mos Def's verse a lot better as well. It's not as rhyme packed as Mos Def, as Pharoah Monchi's, but it's still genuinely a really good, solid kind of verse. And as I've not the two rappers that I've not really listened to the solo stuff on, but what I've heard of Mos Def, especially some of his cipher work, he's like ridiculously well kind of technical and stuff.
Yeah.
And there are some like really kind of good kind of like clever lines in this with I think when the face hit the cement, they've got an agreement, which that kind of stuff. You keep on screaming and give me more reason to see the women in your mama's church screaming, more Jesus, higher than your hooks on. But yeah, it just works really well, and I quite like the fact that I've grown to appreciate Mos Def a lot more as I've gotten older. Like it's like, oh, like the kind of like bratty teenager in me going, oh, he's got like going, oh, look at all the rhyming stuff in Pharoah Monchi's. That last line is it Pharoah Monchi's flows blow shows like afros. We hate your that's where Nate Dogg goes.
Yeah,
he's just fantastic, and I think. And actually, talk about Nate Dogg. I think he'd be 10 years next year. I think since he passed away.
Yeah.
Like
God, that's gone quick.
He's like the king of rap hooks. Like I can't think of anyone else that's been as half iconic to have on a chorus.
Fair, yeah. He's like, you need a good chorus. You hire Nate Dogg in, definitely.
Yeah. But then again, though, as much as I like him, he never was able to carry. I don't think he was able to carry a song. Because I think he tried a solo album. I think it was just full of features.
Yeah.
Because he just couldn't. I don't think he works as doing verses.
Right, fair enough.
So
he's the chorus man.
Yeah. So So that's.
Well, I mean, if he only did Regulate, that's enough.
True. True. But that works as it's like a three. Let's say 3-way.
I don't think they'd like you pointing that out.
A trio of kind of storytelling
Yeah.
working quite well to each other with that, and I think it works because it's a very weirdly structured song that is, and it works quite well. But
I might listen to it on the way home, though. What a fucking song.
yeah.
So, what is your next song going from The Credible?
I want to know what your reaction was when you saw this song. I mean, I'm
absolutely not even slightly fucking surprised at all.
I mean, okay, so this is the one I was flexing about whether you knew. So I knew. Okay, so it's "Shout" by Anton Deck.
Yes.
Now I knew you'd know exactly who Anton Deck were. I wasn't sure about.
I always get them confused with PJ and Duncan. They look really similar. They sound really similar, but they've got different names. They must be different people.
But I mean, was you aware of this song?
I wasn't. So this was 97. This is the oldest track on your list. The only one from last century. I think I'm about 3 years older than you. So I was 15 when this came out. So by this point, I was not even slightly anywhere near where I would hear this. I was listening to Korn and Deftones and stuff like that. I'd got my headphones on when I went out anywhere. I was, sneaking into rock pubs underage and stuff like that. I wasn't.
So
by that point,
played in
yeah, no. By that point, I'd got a girlfriend, so I wasn't at home when Top of the Pops was on anymore or anything like that. So totally bypassed me. Obviously, their earlier stuff I was aware of. I did know of the album being The Cult of Anton Deck, which is the album that this was taken from. I think my sister was still getting smash hits at this point, and I'm fairly certain that when The Cult of Anton Deck was released, that was when it had free Anton Deck face masks. So it got a cut-out mask to be either Ant or Deck.
Yeah. So the only reason I picked this was on a kind of compilation of the greatest hits of 1997, which had, I think it was a couple of tracks before Independent Love Song by Scarlet, which I've spoken about on two different podcasts already.
Yeah.
So this was like around the same time, but for some reason, I mean, I almost nearly picked "When I Fall in Love," which was like the song I think before this, which I nearly got my sister to play at a wedding. Because I was trying to look for kind of like nice romantic songs and stuff. And add this one, and the only reason that she didn't was because Ant McParlin had a pop rap in it. But I'll have to, well, remind me, and I'll play it on after we finish recording. But this song,
I'm looking forward to that. Cheers.
Yeah, I need to make sure you leave here scarred. But no, I don't know. This is one of those songs that's just really weird. That I don't know. It's one of those pop songs that's just kind of I've never forgotten. And like occasionally, it'll be in my head and stuff. And it's one of those that I don't really know why. To the point, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, I don't care. I like it. But
they were definitely aiming towards the Oasis Britpop sort of audience with this one.
Yeah, and
I mean, even the video, just looking at their coats.
Yeah, they look like that. Yeah, they've just like walked out. They've just walked out of a Blur Oasis.
Yeah.
Like dress competition or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's always parts of it that have always been slightly more interesting than just being a very kind of on surface level, kind of like a beige kind of pop rock ripoff. I also think this is like slightly more interesting things going on with it than just being like the pessimist view being like a kind of beige attempt at cashing in on the Britpop stuff. There's a bit more of an interesting thing going on. I mean, I kind of like it because there are things that you like because they don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
Or they're just enjoying it. The fact that this takes itself so sincerely seriously is, I find, quite funny. Because this is played completely straight, and basically Anton Decker singing about kids getting shot and street crime.
Yeah. Also, obviously the bass line in it is an absolute rip-off of Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed, which they essentially admit because there is a Lou Reed lookalike in the video.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a fucking writing credit for him.
No. But yeah, it's, that bass line is dun dun dun.
It's basically Walk on the Wild Side played backwards, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so sincere. It's almost hilarious, and I've always found that bit kind of weird because Anton Deck singing about street crime and kids like
song's got a message.
Yes,
they want to raise awareness for how dangerous. I mean, particularly, they've got experience with gun crime. I mean, particularly there was that incident where Ant did actually get shot in the eyes with a paintball, and he's like.
And he shouted,
"Jeff, my eyes! I can't see!" Which my 7-year-old daughter has never seen that, but she's heard me saying it that often that occasionally walks around the house going, "Jeff, I can't see!" Which I'm hoping that spreads around her school and there are just loads of 7-year-olds saying that and their parents going, "What? Where have you got that from?"
And it all traces back to you. But
I'm an agent of chaos.
Yeah, but I think musically, I mean, there's some weird, interesting things going on. Like so you've got the kind of like basic kind of acoustic guitar, but then you've got this electric guitar doing this kind of weird kind of like indie pop riff.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you've got what sounds like the Mario picking up a coin sound effect appearing in, and these weird sound effects that start kicking in places, which seem very weird when you just listen when you think about it. And then there's record scratches.
Yes. Well, it was the 90s.
Yeah, but like they're trying to do new metal before new metal was new metal, like new metal with acoustic guitars.
I mean, to be fair, there wasn't much new metal doing that kind of thing at that point yet. Limp Bizkit were the only ones. Incubus a little bit. But that would have been way more associated with hip hop and pop taking influence from that kind of thing.
My theory is that this was like the record company playing the long game. So right. What they were doing, basically this was I think it's the only album they did as Ant and Dec. PJ and Duncan was a lot more the E17 kind of pop rap.
We did. There was a Free This Month's Issue episode that we did with a Smash Hits Poll Winners Party tape from late '96, and that was one of the first things I think where they were credited as Ant and Dec rather than PJ and Duncan.
Yeah, but PJ and Duncan was a lot more of the kind of almost like E17 house.
Yeah.
Pop rap style type stuff, which had a lot more of the record scratching sound effects on it.
Yes.
So
and watch us wreck the mic, watch us wreck the mic, watch us wreck the mic.
Psych. But I think that they incorporated that to try and act as a transition to a slightly more mature, well, quote unquote mature acoustic rock sound.
Yeah.
So I think those elements were brought in to try and ease people that were like, oh, this doesn't sound that much like PJ and Duncan, even though like, I mean, yeah, like other songs they've released this time was a lot more poppy than what they had. I think this was probably trying to incorporate elements of their older stuff. So, like, particularly, I think...
Yeah, so it's like a transition rather than a sharp left turn.
Yeah, so like it's like when when bands get older and and they have albums that seem like a lot more softer, a lot more poppy. Yeah. You'll get the occasional elements of earlier kind of rawer albums to try and ease people into a newer sound. I think it's the exact same thing, and it makes it slightly more interesting than it. But yeah, if no one's listened to this yet, please do, because if you know who Ant and Dec are.
I was going to say, all the American listeners and people from outside the UK are like, who the fuck are they on about?
Which is really weird because Ant and Dec are like the biggest like TV personalities in the UK.
They're sort of media personalities, aren't they?
Yeah,
basically.
But they're the number one go-to for ITV. Yeah. They're the biggest. Like the only equivalent I think for the BBC would be like Gary Lineker in terms of media in popularity.
Doesn't he only do sports stuff though? Or does he do things that I don't watch like that kind of telly much?
So. No, he's mainly sports stuff, but he's like He's on
sports stuff and crisp adverts.
yes, but like
And excellent left-wing politics.
yeah, but Match of the Day is on pretty much like 9 to 10 months of the year anyway.
Right.
So he's on the he's got a lot more coverage of the year.
Right, yeah.
Than perhaps Ant and Dec do, where they kind of like get wheeled out every 2 months for
Fair enough.
their next season of stuff. But yeah, to hear them, and they're quite, and I've never had an issue with them. I always thought I find the kind of good light entertainment.
I always thought SMTV was Ace, which was
Yeah.
their Saturday morning kids program that was quite subversive. There were a lot of really good humour in it and stuff.
There's a joke that always stuck with me where like Ant and Dec are there, and Dec's like just pretending to be a robot. And Cat Deely's there, and like, and Dec's like, "Oh, it's a robot." So, Cat, can you turn him on? And she starts going, "Oh, you look really nice today." He goes, "No, switch him on." This is on a kids show.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I always remember that, and it took me until a few years later to realise what the joke was. But yeah, Ant and Dec never. I've always found them quite entertaining. Entertaining. I know some people are probably sick of them, but.
I'm not sick of them because I don't watch any of the shit that they're on.
Yeah.
But, I don't really have any major issues with them, apart from they've, enabled various politicians and ex-politicians to try and improve their status by letting them go on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
They've done a few times where they've sneakily made comments to try to make Finley well. They've made comments towards the government and stuff, like particularly on Partygate. They've made jokes like, like a couple of years ago during the COVID when they was doing I'm a Celebrity. There's like saying, they can say that in the camp there's definitely no party. They can categorically say there was no party, and then Declan goes, "Yes, Prime Minister." to the point where Keir Starmer brought it up in the Prime Minister's questions.
Right. Next song then.
So this is Link's Awakening by Sonic the Comic.
Yes.
The band.
Not the podcast.
Yeah.
Or the comic. Not Sonic. Do they now have to call Sonic the Comic the Comic? Just to make sure it doesn't get confused with the band or the podcast.
Well, they Sonic the Comic, the band, actually do the intro music for Sonic the Comic podcast.
Right, okay.
So anyone who hasn't listened to Sonic the Comic, the podcast, do so. It's like my favourite podcast at the moment. So,
Steph Purinens. I know his name, and I know his name associated with Pick a Disc. And I was like, I'm sure he's been on Pick a Disc. No, he hasn't. I looked through the list. So I think, is he someone you know and he comments on your posts and you comment on his? I'm sure.
Occasionally. So he's... I mean, acquaintances more than anything.
Right, yeah.
But long story being, so Sonic the Comic is a duo from, I think they're based in Glasgow now, but it's basically, and I think they're engaged. They're basically long-term partners, Steph Purinens and Sarah Grayley.
Yes.
People listening might know them more as comic writers and artists.
Yeah.
So Steph has gone to write for Sarah, who's an illustrator. So Sarah Grayley's done stuff like there's a Rick and Morty spin-off.
They've done a Minecraft comic and stuff like
that. They've done Spider-Man comics. They've done all sorts. I think Kim Reaper was one of their ones as well. They've got a comic called Super Adventure, which is basically an autobiographical life. Which is
that one is twee as fuck.
then again, though, you say twee. My first interactions on knowing that Steph existed was in 2011. He was interviewed by Gold Flake Paint.
Right.
For those who don't know, it's like a music review site.
Right. Yeah.
And he was interviewed, and he was for his old band called Team ABC, and it was described as if you're a fan of Los Campesinos and Johnny Foreigner, this is Steph, who is from Wolverhampton. I'm like, okay, this is music from Wolverhampton, influenced by Los Campesinos and Johnny Foreigner. I have to listen to this, and basically listen to some of the Team ABC stuff, and absolutely loved it, to the point where I actually ordered a box of all the stuff they recorded.
Right.
And it's all handcrafted. For the benefit of the tape, I've just pulled out a
box.
cardboard box full of stuff. So like that's his latest EP. So that's like the first EP, Sonic Comic EP called
Oh,
Felt Tip
cool.
Zoo, and it's basically a load of all the collections of his old EP stuff that he's done
Oh, that's cool.
in like all sorts of different cutout shapes
Really
and
nice
colours.
artwork.
All collected. And this is the stuff. So this is basically a bunch of stuff that's very, very kind of indie pop based
Yeah.
stuff. So as
Well, this Sonic the Comic track is very. It's punky indie pop. There's a big sort of emo influence in the sound, but there's also a lot of chip tune in there, which obviously makes sense with it being Sonic the Comic. The band that I was most reminded of by it. Do you remember a band from probably about 16, 17 years ago called : open bracket? So they were a entirely electronic chiptune emo band. They've got one song called Yeah Yeah, which is brilliant. Rest of their stuff I was never that keen on. But yeah, they played a gig in Tamworth once. And the way, so it was all basically backing tracks, but the way that they did the live show, they'd got two girls with computer keyboards, like QWERTY keyboards, that they were playing as if they were guitars.
Yeah.
They were miming, obviously, but I always thought that was quite cool.
We're going to quickly start with something else before we got to delve into the origin story of how I know
Okay,
the comic. But
sorry,
because I want to briefly do a little slight diversion. I think it's about 5 years. I think 5 years is now the right time for me to admit that I got a bit lazy, and the theme tune for Picky Disc was just something I got from Incompetech.com by Kevin MacLeod. It was only going to be a placeholder for about 3 or 4. It was only going to be there for 3 or 4 episodes.
Right. Okay. I was going to say you said that as if it was like, this is a revelation. You say that at the end of every episode.
Yes, true. But yeah, it was only supposed to be there for like 3 or 4 before I found a better one. But the thing that sold that to me is the start of the theme tune, or Pump by CleverCloud.com, has that boof, 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 boof bit, which I really quite like to overlay over like the last bits of the. Yeah, and basically, if that stops, then you know it's someone else editing the podcast, because it's one of those little quirks that I always do. The reason I picked that song is because it's the closest thing I found to the start of a track called Kicking Through Leaves,
right?
By which I played to you just beforehand.
Yes,
so
you did.
That intro to that song, which is from the other album from Not Linked Away, is from Pixel, which is on my canvas.
Yes.
So from the previous album, and I almost went to pick that song to talk about for that reason, but I picked Link's Awakening because I think it's a better song. I think there's a lot more to talk about it, because there's a lot to talk about it, and also gives me the opportunity to explain why I think that Steph is perhaps one of the most. He's really should be writing more songs. So he's a really strong lyricist and very underrated. And particularly with some of the songs off the Atoms album this is from, I generally think he's one of he's like a hidden lyrical talent that really should do more, because I generally really like his lyrical style.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the first album, Pixel, is a lot more positive. And it's kind of like back like in the honeymoon phase of life, and I think it was like recorded in like the first couple of years. I think they was together as a couple, so there's a bit more of a innocence and stuff. There's a whole song dedicated to playing video games and talking about, and the spoken verses talking about their history with Sonic the Hedgehog games.
Right. Okay.
Then I think you get to Atoms, and it's only about 2 years later. But then I kind of like. And I think Steph's very similar. I think he's only like about a year younger than me. So he'd probably been about 29, 30 by the time he started recording Atoms, where this album's from. And there's a lot more kind of about the kind of monotony of life and nostalgia and kind of growing up. And
this song is just pure nostalgia, isn't it? Because it's about playing Link's Awakening, Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, and I think I played it on the Game Boy Color when I was a lot more in my teens, so I never really had the childhood thing to it. Yeah. So a lot of the childhood stuff he kind of attributes to that game. I don't connect with Link's Awakening, but the actual theme of the song being about that escapism, of like looking back, whether like the only real kind of stress that you had was trying to steal stuff that from a shop that the game wouldn't let you steal stuff from anyway. The line I remember, and getting tips from magazines from the chorus, is an absolutely amazing line. The chorus, it's a bloody brilliant line. And I remember getting a load of computer magazines and getting them for point and click adventure games.
Yeah. I mean, there's two potential podcasts that would be good to talk about that with. You know, point and click adventure games and getting tips from magazines.
Yes.
So, 8-bit back issues, everyone should listen to our friend Jeff's podcast, also on the We Made This network.
Yes, which I'll probably be on some point in the next few months.
I've already been on it.
Yeah. But it's that kind of strong, like reflective, nostalgia that kind of like it's almost like an anti-ethos of the previous album,
right?
Because there's a lot more realist, like the kind of honeymoon phase is finished, and like shit, we need to live, we need to do all the boring stuff like adult works, taxes, and stuff, and
overrated.
Yeah, the lead single for the album was a song called "Video Games," and I think like there's lyrics is written like "Real life is pretty okay, but the closest thing to trophies is a list of things to do every day."
Right. Yeah.
Again, I generally think he's like Steph's like ability with like lyrics are great. He's got a very uncanny ability to write write crowd like gang vocal stuff or things that in a different world he'd have people like shouting stuff back to him. There's a song called Just Thorns in the first one where it says, "Stop what you're doing, look down and think." You'd drop down that drink, you'd save so much money if you'd only stop and think, with the words "I wish I heard at 18" from a future me looking pissed off in time machine.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and do that while you were still talking.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, but again, nostalgia, like looking back and comparing to like the modern day stuff, and and I think it's just like themes that I think that Steph and the band have worked to build towards over the course of a few years, and it kind of encapsulates with this song. There's a false ending into this song as well, which then kicks into the repeat of the chorus, and they played indie tracks, I think, in 2016 or 2017, in the church stage, and they introduced this song, and it says that, I'll just let you know that there's a false stop in this, so if you get to that, don't clap or don't do anything because like we've had it in the past and stuff, and you get all this kind of very awkwardness type thing, and so basically it was priming the audience to not make any noise or do anything when the full start hits. So at the end he goes, "I knew someone would, and it would be someone that I recognise," and looked at me in the crowd.
Brilliant.
But I love this band. I think they're great. They've not done anything for about like nearly
7 years, isn't it? Something like that.
7 years. Yeah. To be fair, they're just really busy making comics and doing all kinds of cool shit.
Well, if they do more music and play live again round here, I'll go. So I enjoyed this.
Oh, you really enjoyed this one?
It was good.
Yeah, definitely give the albums a go, because the albums are really good, really good.
I've listened to little bits here and there.
Yeah. Also, final thing that I'll say before we move on to our final two songs. If you go onto their Bandcamp, I don't know if you've been onto Bandcamp. There's their photo that they have. It's them playing on the 2000 Trees Festival late at night, and I was at that set. Right. Actually, that's my photo.
I thought it might be. Yeah.
Because I took the photo that's on their Bandcamp.
Oh, nice. Right, penultimate song then.
Okay. So this is Song for Muchia by Groove Armada featuring Muchia Buenya.
Yes. Out of Control. In brackets. Absolute fucking banger. I love this song.
This is I liken this song to very similar to I Love It by Charlie XCX and
Icona Pop. Yeah.
It's got that kind of like and I kind of attribute that song and kind of this song because I think they've got very similar kind of energy. I think,
Yes. Yeah.
but the sound of it, I think, kind of I attribute those two songs, and I kind of pop will probably would have been on this list as well if I hadn't spoken about it on a
Yeah.
different podcast. Based on the Charlie XCX episode actually a few months ago. I think this is kind of like one of the songs that kind of made me more receptive to pop as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
Or made me realise that you like a lot more pop than you actually realise, and
Yes.
which is considering the amount of crap that's been on this so far, it's amazing that people.
Yeah, you should have maybe realised that sooner.
Exactly, but yeah, this has just got. This is a lot of fun. It's catchy. Again, there's very strong kind of storytelling aspects to it.
Yeah.
That I really quite like. One of the co-writers is Karen Poole, and
from Alicia's Attic.
Yeah, and Karen. Yeah, so Karen Poole is responsible for some of my favourite pop songs.
Yes.
Yeah,
written loads of stuff with Kylie Minogue, hasn't she?
Yeah. Yeah. There's kind of you can kind of tell if she's involved.
Yeah.
And I always think that any song that's got like a kind of almost wittyish kind of twinge to the lyrics.
Yeah.
And she's involved with them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned I Am, I Feel being one that just missed out because you've already talked about it. Indestructible by Alicia's Attic, I think, is probably one of the most underrated pop songs of the 90s. Absolutely amazing song.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's an alternative world where Alicia's Attic are still making stuff or doing kind of.
Yeah, they should have been way bigger than they were.
Absolutely. I think that Alicia's Attic were a band slightly ahead of their time.
Yes.
I think if they were 5-10 years later, I think they probably would have been a bit. Well, they're often remembered quite well, but I think they probably would have lasted longer.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, I think.
But then again, though, Karen Poole has done a great career writing for other people, and
Shelley's done all right as well.
Yeah,
they both. I don't think she writes as much as Karen does, but yeah, they both done a fair bit of writing for very successful other pop singers.
Yeah.
This particular track, sonically, it reminds me of if Prince and the Revolution had got hold of Gary Newman and Tubeway Army's synths. That's exactly what it sounds like. Groove Armada, I absolutely hated their early stuff. Their first album with is it At the River? If you're fond of sand dunes and salty air, that and If Everybody Looked the Same, We'd Get Tired of Looking at Each Other. That one. It's music for advertising executives, and it can fuck off. But this is absolutely fantastic. Super Styling's a really good track as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, they after the first album, they started doing some decent stuff. The video for this song has the least realistic festival crowd I have ever seen, despite the fact that some of it, I'm fairly certain, was filmed at an actual festival. Somehow, all of the people seem massively unconvincing as a festival crowd.
I think it's there's a couple of establishing shots which try to establish epic feels, but because of it's very close and tightly shot into this
There's about 30 people there, isn't there?
Well, it's so tight and kind of very closed off in a frame.
Yeah.
Then it feels like they're just trying to fake a festival, even though they could probably do a bit better to.
Yeah.
If they just raise the camera more, it's ridiculous. But then again, though, it's one of those videos that actually seems to portray the plot of the song.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because there's a girl, for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's Matthias in the passenger seat of a car with some other guy driving, but in the back seat, there's a bloke and two girls, one of whom is obviously playing Matthias' role as the recently dumped and replaced person who is doing some amazing sulky faces at the start of the video.
Tamsin some merch. I think
possibly.
Basically, an actress who's gone on to do some really kind of like.
Okay.
I can't remember what name is. But yeah.
But yeah, she's looking really, really grumpy at the start. Then she stands up in the car and stage dives, and then goes and hangs around with a load of furries.
but it's better than the alternative video, which is basically Witcher's face on a background, which is not as interesting.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a negative way.
I was going to say that sounded really hard.
I don't mean like that. I mean it is basically just Witcher just singing down the camera.
Yeah, so it's not as imaginative.
Yeah, and you don't have the
not as fun.
Yeah, you don't have the comedic attempts to trying to establish a festival crowd. But
I don't think I'd ever seen the video until yesterday.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because like I said at the time, I didn't have, music TV channels or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, this was just after she'd left the Sugar Babes as well, so it was 2007. So.
Yes, because there were a lot of rumours at the time that this song was about her replacement in the Sugar Babes.
Was that Emile?
Yes.
Is it Emile?
Amel or Emile?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just read it. And yeah, she'd left the Sugar Babes because, I mean, she'd not that long before she'd had a baby, and she was going through some like postpartum depression and stuff like that. She'd been in the studio recording right up until 2 months before the baby was due. Had 2 months off, and then 2 weeks after the baby was born, the record company had her back in the studio to record us again. Yeah, for Sugar Babes. And Red Dress was one of the songs that she was recording, which she absolutely fucking hated. So she left the band and then discovered that the record company had basically been either expecting she was going to leave or planning to get rid of her anyway, because they'd already got Mel lined up and she'd already recorded her vocals for 6 of the tracks on the album. Yeah. So they actually released the album with Muttier on the cover and then withdrew it a couple of months later and reissued it with Amel on the cover instead.
That's so Atomic Kitten Harley.
Yeah.
But wow. But I think what's quite interesting as well is that originally she wasn't the first choice.
No,
for this.
It's called Song for Muttier, and it was originally Song for Estelle.
Yeah. I mean, I think they said that it didn't fit, and
yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with Estelle, but I don't know. Again, it's
the only Estelle song I know is American Boy, which is a great track. But I couldn't name another song by her at all.
I think she appears on the Eve album score, which I did own. I'm pretty sure she appeared on that as well. But I mean, again, it's one of those things where, like, I think you get too tied into the songs that you can't really imagine someone else singing that song anyway.
Yeah. Particularly not if it's called Song for Muttier.
Well, I think it was originally called Song for Estelle, but
that'd be really weird if Estelle had done the vocals and it was called Song for Muttier. Then again, are you sure you didn't have someone else in mind?
But then like apparently like they said that because she's one of those pop voices, and like they wasn't sure what to expect when she came in, but apparently she came in was quite professional, even though apparently she was on her phone most of the time, but still did what. But then like apparently she walked in, was on her phone, like texting a friend, because I think she was 21 at the time.
She was 20, I think.
20, yeah. So she was on the phone stuff, but then like, and apparently Groove Mod was like, "Oh, we're gonna have some trouble. She's gonna just be." But as soon as they asked her to start singing, she hit it.
There were a lot of she'd been getting pissed off being in Sugar Babes for a while.
Yeah,
and she did a lot of disappearing and stuff like that. Like they played a gig at, I think, Brixton Academy, and they were all expecting to go back on for an encore, and realised that she'd just gone out of the building and gone home because she was fed up of it, and the tabloids had really picked up on that. So
I think
they would have had an inkling that she had a reputation for that kind of thing.
I saw the Sugar Babes this year.
Yes, I was hoping to get a ticket and missed out.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a lot of fun, but I think the only thing I think is that because I mean technically now I think they're now at their longest serving lineup, which is the 3 originals since they came back from 2011. So what's quite funny is that it's their longest serving lineup, but the majority of the songs that they sang
were
with
for later.
The Heidi. So you had this kind of uncanny valley of all the popular songs, aside from like the 3 or 4 from the
From
first
Overload.
from Overload. I think Flatline, which is their one from the
That
MKS.
was their comeback
Yeah, I think it was
song, wasn't
MKS.
it?
I think.
Which was a bit
Yeah,
prophetic to call it Flatline, and then it didn't do very well.
yeah. But then all the popular stuff that they sang was the Heidi years, and basically Siobhan, bless her, basically was just doing all the Heidi bits.
Yeah.
Which, on one hand, is quite funny. On the other hand, is a bit naff. But I don't know. It's just a very weird. It just felt very weird. But even though it was great because they suddenly played like all the songs you thought they were going to play.
Yeah.
Holding the Head, Round, all that kind of stuff. They finished on About You Now, which wasn't even a muchy song.
I know, but it's fucking ace.
Yeah,
I love that song.
yeah. So there's a very weird uncanny valley. I think out of all the songs, every song they sang, the only person that was in all of them originally was Keisha.
Yeah.
But I think,
and even she wasn't in the band till the end.
Yeah.
They were famously a band like Napalm Death, who had none of their original
or the
members.
Maha Men.
Yeah. Well, Napalm Death's debut album, Side A and Side B are a completely different band.
Wow.
Yeah.
And finally, as well, I only found this out about a few days ago that the
yes,
it's
a sample.
It's a sample, and I mean, did you know this?
Well, it's a replayed sample. It's not a straight sample. But yeah, it's who's it by again?
Ambitious Lovers. So the song's called "Let's Be Adult" by Ambitious Lovers,
which is not a song that I'd ever heard of.
Yeah,
I think it's a fairly obscure 80s synth pop track.
But apparently they did pay to use. They have paid to use it.
Yeah, but they keep it a bit quiet. It wasn't well known because quite often, if a sample is used in a popular song, it will elevate the original song, and people will check that out. But I've never heard anybody mention this.
But I mean, you listen to that song and it's
identical.
It's identical, and then it's only when I think the verse is kicking and like the melody changes completely.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I actually quite liked it. It's just annoyingly it's not on Spotify. That album's not on Spotify. Yeah. So
it's on YouTube though.
Yeah. The GA25 version of this song is slightly different. Did you listen to that version?
No.
It's basically they seem to have just completely rechanged the levels of the musical bit, so the vocals are slightly lower,
right,
and the synth riffs are higher.
Okay,
so it's and
they've probably done that to balance it across the whole album. Then I would imagine.
Very weird. It's very weird to listen to when you're used to the pop version, but
I might check that out because I like synths. Synths are awesome. Should we go for the final song? Totally slipped into free with this month's issue then.
Yes.
Should we go for the final song on the CD? Yeah. What's your last one?
So this is The Ballad of Paul Tierney by Lonely Tourist.
Yes. I'd like this a lot more if it wasn't about football.
So there are parts of again, there are parts of this song and this story behind this song that I don't reveal just yet. So I don't know how much of this or Lonely Tourist you've read into.
A little bit.
So this, I think, as I said with the Mark Owen song about deceptively upbeat. This sounds like an absolute kind of like soul destroying kind of story of a man's career, like a failed career, but is actually, when you think about it, like subversively upbeat,
right,
and actually quite positive, like quite positively affirming, or at least a way of seeing the optimistic side of things.
Okay.
So what this song is about, Lonely Tourist is singing about this guy called Paul Tierney, who isn't the referee Paul Tierney, but it's about a football player who basically went through the academy of Manchester United,
right?
Hardly played a game, and then made one mistake and was on loan, and basically just did a load, was a bench warmer for most of his career, like a 9-year career, and then Lonely Tourist kind of likens it to a music career of busking and singer-songwriter stuff like us, and basically saying so if your third album, the chorus goes your third album comes at 22, is that still good even though people liked the debut? There's a kind of correlation between Lionel Tourist makes between him and this footballer.
Yeah.
So I mean, what did you think of the song when you first heard it? I mean, so ignore the football bit. Ignore the fact that it feels like it's a Wikipedia article.
That's the thing. I mean, I like the guy's very Scottish accent, despite him being based in Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to a lot of stuff I liked, but it didn't massively grab me, to be honest.
Okay,
But that's fine. It's not my list.
but yeah, so I think it's it's saying it so kind of deceptively because so he said that he's drifted to like, so he went to Man U, then he went to Crewe, then Colchester, then Bradford, then Blackpool, Stockport County, and then to Altrincham. In 9 years, he played 84 games. Now, to put that in perspective, so he played left back, which is basically, so if you imagine a football field, you've got the goalkeeper in the goal.
Right.
Yeah. Basically, left back, he'll be on the left of the field, just in front of the defence. So he'll be on that side of the field, and his aim is to try and
So
stop.
it'd be like on the third row of the bars if it was like a table football thing.
Yeah. So he's basically there to try and stop the right-footed strikers. So
Yeah.
basically, a lot of the high-class footballers are the right-footed strikers.
Right.
So
okay.
left back, it's a really they're all quite important, but left back's probably got quite stressful time.
Also, he'd spin round lots.
Yes. Yeah, he'll spin around like upside down all the time. But yeah, to put it in perspective, if I had a quick look at some of the world, this is going to go right over your head, so I apologise.
Sorry, I've already switched off.
I looked at like three. I think part of me wanted to talk about football to you and just enjoy you squirm.
Not squirm, we just don't listen.
But okay, but in a more serious note, for equivalent, so I picked three of them of the most famous left backs ever, which is like the same position that he played. So Ashley Cole,
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he basically
he's married to Cheryl Cole.
Or formerly married to Cheryl Cole. Yeah. He played 508 in 10 years.
Right.
If you compare to Paul Tini's 84 in 9.
Right, yeah.
And then he played a further 107 for England. Paolo Maldini is an Italian left back who's probably the most famous left back ever.
Really? More famous than the one I've heard of that was before him?
Yeah, trust me.
Okay, fair enough.
In a list, Paolo Maldini would be topping.
I have never heard of him.
He's the one I always try to buy in sensible soccer.
Right, okay.
In 15 years, he played 647 in his senior career alone.
Wow.
And he played about 200 as a youngster for the same for AC Milan, and then he played a further 126 for Italy.
Okay.
And that's in 15 years. And Roberto Carlos, who is a Brazilian left back, in 15 played 593 and then 125 for Brazil. So in comparison to that 9-year career, he's not really played that much. But then I think
that's impressive.
Yeah.
/ shocking. Delete as appropriate.
Yes. But then Lionel Tourist then goes like, then particularly in the second or third verse goes like, you rarely kicked a ball and retired at 30, which is quite early for a football player. Right. Saddest tale that you've ever been. But then he switched it. Is it really? Because Lionel Tourist, the singer, never played for Man U, and so he couldn't say he's a Man U player. But even though Paul Tini could be, and that's still like an achievable goal. So you have kids who want to be footballers growing up, who dream for like appearing for these clubs, and he did that.
Yeah.
How do you measure success in comparison to other people? Whereas, like, you got the singer-songwriter Lionel Tourist who's singing these songs to like empty rooms.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, even that, like, to people who might be there to either who just be passive about it, or like the 3 people who made their way to watch him play.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got like 80,000 people who watch this player go out for the first time, make a mistake which costs a game, and 80 people who's supposed to be in for him, like supporting him, suddenly turn on him, and then the management and it probably was Ferguson. Yeah, it was probably Alex Ferguson at the time. Basically sent him.
I would have thought so. Yeah,
probably. I'm assuming you're just going. Yeah.
I've heard of Alex Ferguson. I think he's a manager.
He was, yes. But so it's like kind of this comparison stuff, and then you hear and then he kind of imagines a kind of like scenario where they're chanting his name. Okay, so the last bit of the song goes, Paul Tini, and I think, and what I think the kind of masterstroke of this is that Lonely Tourist's actual name is also
Paul Tierney.
yeah.
I'd look that up. I knew
Yeah.
that bit.
Yeah, but and that element gives it a kind of twists that whole idea of the story's telling. It adds more context to it. So he's comparing two parallel lives and two different kind of like performances or kind
Right.
of careers, so to speak, and the measurement of success. So, and Paul Tierney, the singer, he's saying that. I mean, a part of me would love to have been like a football player, even just to go out onto Old Trafford once, and even if I've lost, I'll become that thing. Whereas, like, also, I would like to have played in front of 80,000 people, but I'm not. So when,
Yeah.
like, and then you've got other musicians who kind of constantly try and do the grind to do that, but they've got kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Agency over, they've got more agency over what they're doing as a musician.
Yeah.
Even though they might be playing so and so, whereas you've got footballers who are at the mercy of managers, fans, external influences.
Yeah.
And it's quite precious. And as much as I know you don't like football, it's quite a demanding and quite pressure sensitive stuff. And
Yeah.
like, particularly if you're not, you've got the people, the higher profile, expensive footballers.
Yeah.
That are constantly playing this stuff. But then you've got people at the lower levels who are trying to struggle just to do stuff, and they're fighting for teams. So like, if anyone's ever watched Welcome to Wrexham, that kind of highlights that the bit.
I haven't, because it's about football.
Oh, it's a lot more. It's about community more than anything, and it's a lot
there's
more
football in it.
Oh, it's fantastic, but it's fantastic to see how the community aspects of it anyway.
Yeah.
But because of how they are, they've got basically people coming up to do a job, and they're not making massive amounts of money in comparison to levels like that. So, whereas with musicians, they're doing like same amounts of work and probably not getting paid for it.
Yeah, it's the same with footballers and with musicians and with podcasters. There are different levels. There are some people that get, you've got Joe Rogan who's peddling his misinformation and getting paid millions by Spotify to do it. And you've got, millions of idiots listening to it. Then you've got us doing podcasts where there aren't as many people listening, but the people that are listening to it are vastly more intelligent and clearly much more discerning than the twats that listen to Joe Rogan. So, who's the real winner here?
Yeah,
Is it us?
Is
it him?
It's
us.
All the gorgeous people that listen to Pick a Disc. All the gorgeous people that listen to Weird Music.
Yeah.
Free with this one's issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting way that you kind of twist the song. So when he starts singing like the name at the end of the song, it's like an upbeat, like the fans are all singing the name because they know what is achieved and stuff. And there's just an element of upbeatness to it.
Yeah. Positivity.
Yeah.
It's turning a negative situation around into a positive situation, which is a good thing to do.
And adding context to, okay, we're not at this point, but we are here now, and we've done what we've done. We've done something, we've achieved something, and it might not be what we've probably dreamed, because, again, Paul Tierney, footballer, probably dreamed of being an international footballer. He was told very well at the start that he could do all this stuff and didn't make it just because of a mistake, and then Lonely Tourist, like, probably similar, wanting him to be a well-known, wanted to play in front of loads of people.
Wanted to headline Glastonbury and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he's playing on the bandstand at Glastonbury, where I've played.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, they've achieved something. And I don't know, there's just like a weird upbeat for me, like, familiarity. So, like, and it kind of like recontextualizes life goals in that, okay, you perhaps want to do something, but then if you kind of reaffirm or kind of retwist what you want from something, you can probably find more enjoyment about it. And the reason that I've made this last is because you can draw a parallel to that, as you said, with podcasting, or exactly with the show Pick a Disc. So as I'm getting to 5 years, like, I've never been that too hung up on the stats of stuff. And I know that
way madness lies.
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes what, and I'm probably not talking to everyone here, but there's probably some people that have probably focused on that and perhaps been disheartened from that.
Yeah.
I've never really felt that with podcasting. I've taken the view that, or at least I've recontextualized the goals of what I wanted that, and a lot of that is more the meeting or speaking to people I've never spoken to before, the interaction with the greater podcast community.
Yeah.
Like I've spoken to people and met people through it all over the world.
Yeah.
Through this podcast, and I think that to me is how I measure my success with that. I've got potential.
And you've enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how I measure. That's how I measure the relative success.
Just realised I said that in past tense. You're enjoying doing it.
Yes, I still enjoy it. I don't enjoy the editing, but that bit's horrible. But it's that bit. I mean, so 131 episodes. I've spoken to. Perhaps I should have counted this actually.
Yeah.
You
could have done that, but you haven't.
So I'm thinking of perhaps around the 70 to 80 mark of people that I've spoken to, and people that I've met. So I've met people through this podcast. But like very recent, the recent episode that's on the day of recording. The recent episode is the Paul Simon episode.
Yes.
And Johnny, who was there, I actually met Johnny in person a few weeks ago when his band supported Skating for Girls.
Yes.
And met him in person, and lovely bloke. I thought found him really quite nice. I've enjoyed that as perhaps the key moment of that, which I think is very similar to the message that this song is gesturing. And that's and you asked me if there was an order to this, and the storytelling and the hosting me was thinking, what's the best way to wrap up this? And I'm like, I know, let's bring it back to the podcast. So
good work and well done.
I mean, I've always liked that song anyway, but I found a thematic link between me doing this podcast. I mean, it would be so much better if my name was Matt Latham and was also Paul Turney, but so that was, and so that's.
That would have been more obvious why you'd pick the track if that was the case.
Yeah, and the fans will sing, "Oh, Matt Latham, oh."
What was that song that's got your name in it that you wrote years ago that you put a set list up on Instagram the other day?
Oh, Latham, Destroyer of Worlds.
I think for the end of the episode, you need to put a recording of Latham, Destroyer of Worlds up there because I want to hear it.
There isn't a recorded version. There's a recorded parody version that Tony's done, which if I can find, I might have to run upstairs and find it on my PC upstairs. I'm not going to play it on here. But
chicken.
Yeah. But so that is the Matt playlist.
That is 5 years of Pick a Disc.
Yeah.
And 5 years of the We Made This Network.
Yeah.
So pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think as well, there's still a few more episodes of this month so we've still got 2 regular episodes, and there's another. It's not recorded yet, but I'm still planning on another crossover to help celebrate the We Made This Network with Carl from Duets and Contos.
Our shipwrecked brother. That's the is that the Spitting Image record?
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, from your perspective, how have you found this episode and listening to that playlist?
I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. There's mostly songs I would not necessarily have given as much attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always fun. It's like I've really enjoyed doing that series of 3 episodes with me, you, and Mark.
Yeah, even though you couldn't research.
Oh, that stressed me because we weren't allowed to research, whereas this one I could.
Yeah.
Although I haven't had enough time to do loads of research on these.
Yeah.
Because at the time of recording, I've got to get a Weedig Music episode out in 3 days, and I'm a third of the way into it, and it's a long one. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. There's some great stuff on there. Sonic the Comic, I'm definitely going to be listening to more of their stuff. And the Happy Accidents as well. I enjoyed that too.
Definitely tip that. So.
Yeah. Not so much the DJ Pied Piper. Probably not going to investigate much more of there.
What about the Cult of Ant and Deck?
I just think there's a slight spelling error.
But yeah, I'm gonna. What I'm gonna do. If there's anything else you got to add, or
Not really.
no? So, Colin, if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Well, I mean, right now I'm sitting on your sofa, but
It's probably the same thing that you said last
I
week.
probably did, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've got 2 other music podcasts, Free with this month's issue and We Dig Music.
You've not mentioned them at all.
No,
Yeah.
no. Go and listen to them if you haven't already. Also, you can find me on Twitter if anyone's still on that, at Mogwai Fierce Satan. But yeah, mainly the podcasts. Go find them, listen to them. They're quite good.
Yeah, and because I haven't usually front loaded this, you can follow Pick a Disc and all those places on the Pick a Disc. I'm not going to repeat them all. Yeah, there's a Discord server. Go and join it on that. It's very small, but very quiet. But go and say hello.
Come and talk to the 3 of us.
Yes. Yeah, the 3 of us that post regularly. Yeah. But I mean, if you listen to this all the way to this end, to this point of the podcast, and if you've listened to more than one episode, again, I also want to take this opportunity just to thank you to everyone that's even paid 1 ounce of attention to the podcast. I want to say thank you to Colin, who's been the longest, like the long-suffering person who's been on the most episodes so far, and for some reason still seems to be up for doing it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I want to say thanks to that. I want to say thank you to. There's too many people to thank. Like the Shipwrecks and Comatose guys, Mark, Carl. I suppose I'm gonna have to say. I mean, I can never say a sincere compliment about him, but I'm gonna have to say thank you to Tony for actually creating the We Made This Podcast Network.
It's all right.
Yeah.
He's got a kid now. He won't be listening.
He probably hasn't been listening anyway. I want to say thank you to all the previous guests that I've had, all the people who've listened, all the people who wanted to listen to the Pretty Woman soundtrack on Amazon and have gotten this episode instead, which meant that I kept getting so many flipping stats from that. Maybe I should really have turned the adverts on just for that episode.
Pay for the network.
Yes, yeah. Again, I can't thank you. I mean, it means so much that over the last 5 years, that for someone who pretty much is still needs convincing that you can actually get hearing you say a sentence together, that people have actively sat down and I mean, there's not many of you there, but as I said earlier, it doesn't matter. Someone said that if you imagine that you're in a room,
I was just about to say that.
Imagine you're in a room and that all those listeners are people. I mean,
they are people usually. The listeners.
Yeah, they're all. Listeners are in the room just
as
listening
far
to
as
you
we
talk.
know.
Yes. Then that's exactly how it will feel like. And I just want to say again, I can't thank you all enough. And whether this goes on for the next 5 years, I don't know. But I mean, I've got no plans of stopping yet.
Good.
So I mean, I still want to get to 200. I've got no idea what the 200th episode pick's going to be yet, but I kind of want to get to that. So. That's a target.
What's this, 130 something?
131, so 200 will probably be...
a couple of years' time.
2026, I think.
Yeah.
So...
we'll be there.
Yeah. But then, I think that's all that's left to say is thanks so much, and happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Bye. Oh shit, I forgot to press record.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This Podcast Network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/We Made This. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pickadisc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Colin.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Tracy.
And we dig music.
Just not always the same music.
Each episode, we pick our 10 favourite songs from a specific year, rate them, and then battle it out over a top 30 countdown.
Colin's pretty enthusiastic about most stuff, Ian less so.
And Tracy definitely owns a thesaurus. And one of us will regularly be told to fuck off.
So join us each month to hear what we dig and what we don't. Listen to We Dig Music wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on wedigpodcast.com, or we're on the We Made This Podcast Network, which you can find at wemadethisnetwork.com.